Shavua Tov, everyone. Welcome to Tillis Tell Stories for Saturday night. The title of this week's video is Fresh Chinese Challah. I revised the story slightly from the book Excuse Me, Are You Jewish? A two-volume collection of outreach emissary stories by Malka Tauger. Mrs. Dini Freundlich settled comfortably into her couch late one Thursday night. She sighed in relief. Thank God this will be a regular weekend, she thought. Living here as Lubavitcher representatives is a challenge and an inspiration, but I could really use a break. By here, she meant Beijing, China, where she and her husband, Rabbi Shimon, run the Chabad house. And a regular weekend means only 50 or 60 guests at their Shabbat meals. It was 2 weeks after Pesach, and the past days have been especially taxing. Biannually, a large 2-week fair is held in Guangzhou, Canton in English, and Jewish businessmen from around the world attended. Chabad of China provides kosher food, services, and a spiritual respite for the participants. Mrs. Freundlich has been cooking, packaging, and sending food for over 200 people. As she was resting, their telephone rang. Her husband took the call. "Hello, this is Rabbi Mendel Gorovitch from Brunois, France," said the voice at the other end. "A Chabad supporter from France, Mr. Green, and a small group of associates are now in China on business. They are planning to spend Shabbat at the Great Wall and are wondering if you could send a few Jews to spend the day with them." "I would like to help," responded Rabbi Freundlich, "but there really isn't anyone to send. As you know, Beijing doesn't yet have a thriving Jewish community. Also, to be honest, I'm not clear as to what Shabbat at the Great Wall means. There are no hotels there. Why don't you give me Rabbi Green's number, and I will contact him directly to see if I can be of assistance." Rabbi Gorovitch happily gave him the number. After inquiries, Rabbi Freundlich discovered that Mr. Green was planning to spend Friday celebrating a recent corporate merger, together with his Chinese business partners. They should at least have some semblance of Shabbat, thought Rabbi Freundlich, referring to Mr. Green's family. Nodding encouragingly at his wife, as she would have to do all this last-minute baking, he offered to bring Mr. Green and his associates challah and wine. Mr. Green was very touched by the gesture, and they arranged to meet early Friday morning before the group set out for the Great Wall. Recalls Mrs. Freundlich, "I groaned inwardly, because it meant I would have to make the batch of dough right away. At that moment, I thought I would not even have the strength to budge even if the Great Wall were to come tumbling down on top of me." But of course, the dough was made, and the next morning 12 freshly baked golden chalot were ready. As she handed the neatly packed bags to her husband, a weary Dini Freundlich muttered under her breath, "No one can appreciate the true cost of these challahs." "At least one person can," smiled her understanding husband warmly as he thanked her for her efforts. An hour later, Rabbi Freundlich called his wife from the hotel. "Remember you said no one can appreciate the true cost of these chalot? Well, Mr. Green would like to know how much you think your chalot really are worth." "What?" she responded, confused. "He thinks they are worth a Torah scroll," continued her husband excitedly. Mrs. Freundlich could hardly believe her ears. Their Chabad house had been using a small scroll which her father, Rabbi Mendel Lipsker in Johannesburg, the chief emissary of the Lubavitcher Rebbe to South Africa, had lent them. The Chabad house of Beijing definitely needed its own scroll. Later, Rabbi Freundlich related what had happened. "Mr. Green was very moved by our efforts to provide him with chalot and wine. They were still warm from the oven, and the aroma permeated the hotel lobby. He asked about our activities in Beijing and how we managed to sustain and spread Judaism here. He inquired about our Chabad house, and do we have a minyan, a Torah scroll, and so on. I told him about our need, and he informed me that he had 2 Torah scrolls written recently, and was planning to donate one to a worthwhile institution." After concluding her story, Mrs. Freundlich added, that Torah scroll is now in regular use at our Chabad house. Its mantle has 2 chalot embroidered on it. This is a reminder to me. It is also a reminder to me and others that when we face a challenge, others often appreciate it, and our efforts are blessed by God. Yes, folks, there's nothing that brings blessing into the home like fresh, home-baked chalot. Shavua Tov, and keep that in mind for next Shabbat.